Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Adia.
And I'm Lauren.
And this is co-produced. So today with us in the pod, we have Dimitri. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, it's a pleasure to be the first guest of your podcast. Thanks for having me.
So Dimitri, tell us a little bit about how you became involved in the Peace Pathway.
I've joined Peace Pathway almost 3 years ago as a postdoctoral researcher. My main focus was on sensory and emotion regulation difficulties patients experience during their treatment journeys and to innovate the clinical practice with mental health technology.
And we understand that Peace Pathway is growing, so it's becoming the Peace Pathway Plus. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and your role in it?
Yes. So I'm a member of the Peace Plus project with a wonderful team who are working to make eating disorders treatment more neurodivergent friendly for patients who have autism and now ADHD. So Peace Plus expansion is to make Peace Pathway, which was before autism friendly eating disorders pathway. Now we're adding the ADHD focus on it. So we will create more tools and more interventions for people who has these co-occurred conditions.
And what are you most excited about this expansion?
I'm excited because it's new opportunities to work with lived experience people who are struggling during their treatment journeys, and it's exciting to make this journey more easier and accessible for them.
Absolutely.
And we know you recently published a paper on sensory landscapes. Can you tell us a bit more about this project?
Yeah, that was actually my first project when I joined the Peace Pathway. This was a year-long ethnography, the sensory ethnography of inpatient care of anorexia nervosa. We know that almost 30%, a third of the patients with anorexia nervosa are also autistic. And it comes with lots of differences in communication, sensory and emotion-related differences, different processing styles. So the treatment can be very challenging during this time. And this was the attempt to try to understand lived experience of treatment, how sensory environment of the world shapes the lived experience of treatment. Why was it exciting? Because we use lots of different methodological techniques to understand this experience. Because it's when you're in the inpatient care, it can be quite difficult because lots of physical and psychological problems are vivid, and also the people struggle to be distant from their families and loved ones. So it's quite difficult, and to give a chance to work with these people, this is very, very good experience for me as well. So, but as I've mentioned, because all of these differences, it's hard to get to grasp this lived experience. So we were trying to meet their needs during this inpatient care and try to adapt the methodology to involve these patients in the study. So we designed this sensory ethnography, which gave us opportunity to use different methodological techniques and to change and adapt these techniques through the research. I can tell you how the process looked like, this research.
Yeah,
so first,
and if you could explain what an ethnography is as well for people that may not be sure.
So this sensory ethnographic approach is to understand with participant observation the whole process. So you're attending the whole treatment journey when patient is admitted into the ward. And we've been wonderful team of collaborators, including clinicians, lived experience representatives, and poorly researchers like myself. First, we introduced the study, and patients who were happy to join in our study. First, they attended our sensory wellbeing workshop, which created the ground for language to reflect on the sensory experiences. After that, we conducted several rounds of research-related type of exercises, walkthroughs in the inpatient ward with sensory mappings to understand how the sensory landscape of the inpatient ward is experienced. We've designed a specific technique to help patients understand their experiences and communicate these experiences as well. So this was guided sensory reflection with artificial intelligence assisted visualization techniques. Now, we were asking patients to imagine if the time spent in the ward was a material object and describe it with their sensory qualities like weight, texture, how it feels, and so forth. Based on these reflections, we translated those into the AI prompts and then generated some kind of visual metaphors of these experiences. And then we use those images to reflect again on the lived experience. And it helped patients to reflect how their experiences are shaped by the sensory landscape and materialities of care in the inpatient settings. We also had the participant observation during the ward rounds and other clinical related routines. We did some interviews as well, and the findings were very important.
What did you find?
So it is well documented that lived experience of anorexia is felt like being trapped into the illness and also to be ambivalent towards it. So you want something to hold very tightly, but it's also scared to be distant with it. And also it feels like you are trapped in something and you are losing the control and agency during this process. What we found in the treatment experience is quite it mimics the lived experience of anorexia, because we know that clinical practice are designed to respond the illness and illness-related symptoms. But if we don't consider the person behind with their different brain types, personality traits, and etc., then the treatment can mimic the illness itself. So what we found out that the treatment is also experienced as an illness with being trapped in the confined space and being ambivalent to it. I can remember the one drawing from our research participant who drew the body shape, oversized body shape in the very constrained small space and give the title that fat body trapped in the space. That's how treatment can feel if it doesn't respond your sensory needs. And also, we, as I mentioned before, we did the sensory mappings in the ward. If you see the image, which is in our paper, there is a colored plan of the wards. You can see the green areas, red areas, yellows, and white. Red means that the areas which are very highly sensitive and experience very harsh, for example, the dining room, conference room, where the ward rounds usually happen once a week, and other areas. We also have the mild sensory intensive areas like the halls in the practice, and also the soothing areas like calm rooms or the little garden the inpatient ward has. But what's important, this sensory experience, how patients feel it in the ward, is unevenly spread. So they have very intensive sensory experiences, which is very discomforting and also soothing. But this contrasting experiences makes it more ambivalent because you have moving through very contrasting experiences. So these findings connected lived experience of anorexia nervosa, lived experience of its treatment, and the materialities of the words together. That's why it's important. And we know from the research that there is a specific term, anorexic embodiment, which means that anorexia and anorexia nervosa related illness-related symptoms can be extended and embedded in the material environment. And that's a good point to start thinking that we need to make adjustments and adaptations in the clinical practice to make it more comfortable and easier for patients, especially with co-occurring neurodivergent conditions.
I was having a look over the map this morning, and I thought it was really interesting because the red areas, as you said, were kind of the treatment areas. They were the areas that all the other patients would be in at the same time. But they were also spaces like the lounge that were just quite large. And then all of the yellow areas were, again, other people were using it, but then the green was individualized. I wonder how you can kind of pull on the individualized spaces, for example, their bedrooms or the therapy rooms, where maybe they have a bit more control over some of the factors that are going on, and how you can improve the red and the yellow areas. Did you have any thoughts around that when you were doing the research?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And we're currently still also thinking about that. But what was the strategy of adaptation was that we were creating the sensory islands to help patients to feel to calm down for a bit. But this approach to create something island, which is really good, but that also encourages ambivalence. So I think the important is to make the holistic adaptation. So we need to adapt every space, not only creating the areas where you jump and have a rest, which is good, but also the whole practice needs to be adapted.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where do you think this research is going to be going? It sounds like you're still thinking about it, and probably your lab is also still thinking about it. But where do you see it moving to next?
So currently I'm working on my fellowship project, and I'm trying to translate these findings to inform my future research direction. And we were discussing in the lab meetings as well. So it's very hard to make adaptations of the physical spaces which already been designed for neurotypical individuals in mind. So we can make some adaptations, but you can't rebuild everything. But technology gives us the opportunity to build new spaces. And I'm very interested in extended reality clinics and immersive clinics for example, in the virtual reality, where you can adjust the sensory landscape of this experience. You can personalize it. So my future research will be focused on to create the design blueprints for virtual reality clinics for neurodivergent friendly eating disorders care.
So I guess pulling it back to Peace Plus a bit more, how do you think this study relates to the work that you guys have been doing?
Thank you. You're giving me a chance to reflect in the broader picture of the Peace Plus. But actually, the answer will be that this is one of the illustration how the Peace Plus research is co-produced with lived experience contributors. So ultimately, that is what this work is about, a whole peace pathway, understanding people in the ways they actually experience the world, not in the ways we expect them to be. When we listen differently, we understand differently. And I think that understanding it is what makes care truly human.
Well, great. Thank you for joining us today, Dimitri. It was great hearing about the peace pathway, but also your research. And I have been Adia.
And I've been Lauren.
And this is Co-Produce.